Welcome to the Designated Drinker Show, the podcast that's raising the bar on craft cocktails. I am your host, Louise Solis, and with me, as always, is my very, very talented friend, who is this podcast special sauce. She's the mixtress, you see, Gina.
I love that. I think I have a little sassy more than saucy, but I'll take it.
A little bit of both, goes a long way.
I'm okay with
It's
it.
a good thing. Tops everything.
Yeah.
All right. So, Gina, no matter what we may think about fast food, the industry has created some of the catchiest slogans. You know, I love slogans and jingles of all time. From I'm loving it, which has a really cool backstory, by the way, by McDonald's, to the Chihuahua saying, Yo quiero Taco Bell. Many of these taglines are just unforgettable, and they just stick in your head, right? They last for decades, well past the commercial run. So you know what it is? You know what that means?
What?
It means it's quiz time. Just for
I'm
Gina.
like, wait, what?
Here we go. I'm going to name the slogan. You name the fast food chain.
Okay, go.
All right. Eat more chicken.
Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, that one's easy. Remember, cow says that. We have the meats.
I was gonna say Wendy's. That's not it. Arby's.
There you go.
Arby's,
There you
yeah.
go. And you know that voice is Ving Rhames.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I found that out in this little research I did here. Okay, and now this one goes way back to our time. Where's the beef?
That's Wendy's.
That is
Wendy's.
Wednesday.
I
Good
just got
job.
I know who that
Good
is.
job.
That's that lady. Go ahead.
Fresh.
Subway.
It is, and that's like the worst bread ever. And you deserve a break today.
That's McDonald's.
You are. You definitely read my notes. She's
What?
a cheater.
No, that is
punketer.
McDonald's.
It is McDonald's.
That's an old
you
one,
got
though,
100%.
right?
It is. It's from the 70s.
Yeah. I was
It
gonna
ran
say.
through like a decade through the 70s.
Yeah,
to the
you guys
80s.
forgot I grew up in New York. I mean, the reach
No.
for me was Chick-fil-A because
Yeah.
that's not a New York brand.
Except that it's more common now.
Yeah.
It's olives
You
everywhere.
throw the New York brands at me, and I'm like, I got you.
You got it. All right.
But fast food is also regional, so that's also crazy, right?
Absolutely, it is. I think these are most of what we picked today. These were all other than Chick-fil-A is probably that. I think it's nationwide. Maybe Arby's. I don't know. Anyway, so like the drive-through line at Chick-fil-A, we could go on and on with these slogans, but we're not. We have today, because of today's guest, she knows way more about the fast food industry than just taglines. Get this. She recently won the Pulitzer Prize for her book, Franchise, The Golden Arches in Black America, where she uncovers a surprising history of cooperation among fast food restaurants, Black capitalists, and civil rights leaders. So please welcome to the show the professor of history and African American studies at Georgetown University. She is Dr. Marcia Chatelain. Welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for being here.
Hi. You are too young to have done all of these things. Just
Oh
so
my
we're
gosh,
clear.
the lighting here is fantastic. People are like, "Oh, you look so young." I was like, "Don't worry, I'm slowly weathering underneath this."
Oh my gosh, I'm like looking at your face. I'm like, there's no way she did all this. This is amazing.
I know, it's crazy. And there's more. It is even more. So let's do this. So, Marcia, I definitely want to get to your book. Absolutely. We want to find out all about that. But will you please tell Gina and our listeners just a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am firmly middle-aged athleisure mom, as I like to call myself on Twitter.
Athleisure mom, I love it.
I am a professor of history. I like to think of myself as someone who has a really fabulous and fantastic life in history. When I'm not teaching my students, I do a lot of talking head stuff on documentaries. I appear on podcasts. I have an extra life in the true crime podcast world where I'm often a guest. Yes, I am often a guest on true crime podcasts.
Yes.
I worked on one a few years back called Undisclosed that looked at the death of Freddie Gray in Baltimore, Maryland, and I was the historical voice of it. And when I'm not doing that, I
listened to that one.
Oh, did you?
I totally did. Yes.
Yeah,
oh my
that
gosh.
was me. I was Marcia of that setup. And then, I think that what is most important about me to know is that I I love my interests with my whole heart. And so whether it is my 2-year-old son, or whether it's civil rights history, or whether it's the Real Housewives franchise, like when I love something, I commit fully. And I commit fully to fine dining and fine drinks, which I just adore, but I have to also engage with in moderation. Kind of like my reality TV viewing, though I'm not really moderate on that one.
Gina, I think you've met your match.
I love her. I love you already. Because everyone's always
Oh my
like,
God.
you really are too invested into Real Housewives. I'm like, I know, but I'm super into this. Like, one, I mean, tonight's like, I don't know. I shouldn't say tonight what's going to be on, but I'm obsessed.
There you
Like,
go.
these women, like, literally put themselves out there and they're on, and, like, doesn't matter what. I really do love Potomac because I know some of those ladies, so it's really fun for me. But I mean, honestly, I think I have to say Jersey Housewives are very entertaining as well.
You know what? I just started the recent season. I was a few episodes behind. The thing I find fascinating about Housewives, if from a historical perspective, they are really chronicling, I think, the nation's economy in this incredible way. Because when they started, it was before the mortgage meltdown. Then the recession happened. Then, we got through elections with them. I wonder how inflation is going to impact the Housewives. There's this weird way where there's an artifice of wealth, but then there's like the story behind it. And I also am a big Potomac fan because it's the area I lived in, right? Like when you live in the DMV, you can identify the places they're in. 99% of the show happens outside of Potomac, which I also find fascinating.
Yes.
No one lives in, very few of them, I should say, live in Potomac. But I think it's just such a fascinating view on the dynamics of wealth and gender and social class. And this idea that I talk to my students all the time. When I was a kid, it was a very big deal to see someone you knew on television. It's like if there was a roving reporter who asked them, to react to something, or if someone you knew was going to be on television, it was like, oh my God. Now, I feel like I know tons of people who've been on TV for good and for bad, right?
Yep.
Just are available. The possibility that you could become like the moment at any second is such a strange kind of cultural phenomenon. But in many ways, the Housewives, illustrate that perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, the truth is, I think that is also with podcasting too.
100%.
Because it becomes an approachable medium, whereas before media was really, it was like, to your point, when I was a kid, it was always hard. If you got to be on TV, I figure skated at an outdoor rink, and the news would come and they would do the weather underneath the B-roll footage of me skating probably at least 2 to 3 times a month. And I would inevitably go, oh my God, you were on the news again. But it's just like the weather's on top of me. You can't really, it was my feet.
Well, I mean,
but I was special, damn it.
Well, I mean, I come from a very modest background. And to think about the fact that I am sometimes on television and I don't even know that it's on, and someone will text me and say, my neighbor saw you, or, my mom will say, your aunt called me, she saw you on CNN, and I'm like, oh yeah, they ran this thing, is so mind-blowing because I'm, what do they call me? A zennial? Because I was born in 1979. So I didn't grow up with the internet until later, and I didn't have a cell phone until I graduated college.
Gotcha.
So I remember when, if my friend was on TV, you'd have to get a blank VHS tape out of the basement to tape it so someone could watch it. And now, the fact that I'm in other places that people can see whenever they want is very weird to me.
I guess, and that's when you used to get in trouble if you grabbed the wrong tape and you taped
oh my God,
over
you taped
something.
over something, yes.
Oh, you were in trouble.
That was me. I'm sure it was something horrible, like New Kids on the Block or something disgusting, just like that bad. I was like, Mom, it's gonna be on New Kids on the Block. Meanwhile, I'm like, oh, it's terrible. Everything I loved was like. And meanwhile, now the American Girl dolls have like some kind of like 90s American Girl dolls, and I started cringing when I saw it, and I was like,
whatever.
I was like, and they're like, the fact that they're gonna like, preserve our decade. I'm like, that's just wrong. And then I'm like, I am 45. I'm like, I have to like accept my age. I'll just keep using my face creams and hopefully I'll look as good as Marcia does because this is bullshit. I'm like looking at you and you're like, I'm born in 79. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way.
I appreciate that.
Funny she didn't say the same thing about me.
Or me.
Listeners, in all fairness, we are not all like inches away from each other. I can barely make out what your faces look like. The lighting in that office is really fabulous.
Yeah, you think? Oh,
I think
that's
it's doing good stuff.
I'm good.
Well, from
good.
my screen, you can't see anything from a screen, really. But
yeah,
I'm
that's
sure
true.
you're all
that's
very
true. Well, when we
fabulous.
all get together in DC and have drinks, we'll make that happen.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Because I think we should hang out with Marcia. I mean,
I do have a bar. We should go to Last Call.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bar.
Yeah. Yes.
You had her at bar.
Yes. I'm sure some of your students have frequented Last Call, but I do own that divey cocktail bar, so it's fun.
So, Marcia, what drew you to academia?
You know, it's so again, like a person who has had a lot of success and kind of had no plan, which is kind of shocking. So I didn't know what I didn't know, and so when I went to college, I thought I was going to be a journalist. I loved writing. I loved reporting. You know, I had the privilege of going to Missouri School of Journalism, and you know, it was really, really good. It was really, really competitive, and I wasn't that good of a journalism student. I was perfectly fine, but I didn't have that instinct that a lot of my classmates had to, you know, like sleep in the newsroom or like, you know, try to file 10 stories a month in our, you know, newspaper, which was like the lab for our class. I wanted to write long stories. I wanted to have the space to kind of go deeper. And I'm also part of that strange generation of journalism students where I majored in magazine journalism.
Wait,
right?
What's a magazine?
Right, exactly. And I loved magazines. I mean, I used to I remember going to the bookstore in college and spending a fortune on magazines, beautiful glossies, food magazines, photography magazines. Yep. So I was part of that last group. So I was in that generation that learned how to write long narrative stories. And it just didn't seem like a viable path as I was moving through my education. So I also majored in religious studies, which I really liked because a lot of it was research-based. A lot of it was telling long and deep stories about faith and culture. And so kind of midway through college, I knew that I wasn't going to be a professional journalist. And I was really just encouraged to consider academic research. I had no idea how competitive it was to become a professor. I don't really think I understood how little money you make at the start of your career. I just like didn't know these things because I didn't have an idea of what being successful was other than being able to take care of myself in a modest way. I didn't have aspirations of living in a giant house or having 10 cars. So when I graduated from college, my PhD stipend was $18,500 a year, which looking back is so bananas. Yeah. But I was living a great life. I drove a Ford Focus. I lived in a shitty apartment. I got to read books all day. I always had extra jobs, you know, to sustain myself. So I would go on like one trip a year, occasionally go out to dinner with my friends. I remember Tuesday nights we would have a potluck and watch America's Next Top Model. So I was kind of I was living the best version of an adult life I could imagine. I think because, you know, I grew up in a context where people worked in factories. They worked, you know, as healthcare assistants. They had these really grueling, physically taxing jobs. And here I was, not making that much more money, but having the opportunity to read books and write. And I just loved it. I loved teaching. I loved getting people excited about how history can help them solve, you know, contemporary problems. Wow. And so I think that there was a kind of naivete I had about what professional life would look like. But I just always knew that I was scrappy enough to figure out how I was going to pay my rent, how I was going to pay my bills, how I was going to get free trips somewhere, somehow, right? Like some way. And then, you know, I think I had excellent mentorship. I had a lot of professors who were also first generation college students who came from, you know, really modest backgrounds and were able to forge really amazing careers. And so I think that there's something kind of like, there was a kind of innocence that I had about kind of what having a middle class life entailed, but I've just always followed my instincts and I always just found other ways to do my work so I could take care of myself. And the life I have now is something I could never imagine. Sometimes I get to eat in fancy restaurants and I'm like, oh my God, this is like something in a movie. I say that all the time when I go to somewhere beautiful. I'm like, oh, this is like something in a movie, and I get to experience it. And I never take that for granted.
I think that's so beautiful to be gracious and grateful for what you have at your disposal, at your fingertips, because I think we often only see what we don't have. And to have that, you're such a breath of fresh air with the idea of, no, appreciate what you have, because I mean, I can fall victim of, oh, I have this, but I wish I had that. You miss the moment, to your point. I mean, that's great insight, and it's something that we should all try, or I shouldn't say anyone else, but myself should apply that more to my life so that I can appreciate every moment, because I'm not promised another one. Not the last time I checked.
100%. And you just never know what's on the other side of something. I have a PhD student who is finishing very soon, and I said to her, I said, you started this program, it's so overwhelming, it's so stressful, there's ups and downs, and now we're on the other side of it, and then it's going to be something else. And I think as a writer, you have to tell yourself that, because writing a book is the worst. It is so stressful. It's so exposing. All you think about are all the people who are going to say that you're wrong, or you're foolish, or you have to just really remember that everything is just a period in your life, and then it will be something else that will challenge you or inspire you.
Oh, that's cool.
It's a good way to look at it, right?
Yeah, it's a great way.
Hey, the other side of it. That's how I felt about the first 10 years of my business. Now I'm on the other side of it. That sucks, because now you're like, now I got to get to 25.
No, I mean, look, being a business owner, my sister is in the wine and spirits industry. She's a sommelier, and, she has been in the industry for such a long time. And I remember when COVID struck, we were in New York City, my sister and I. She lives in Chicago. I live in DC. And I was coming to New York for my big book party. I was going to have a huge event at NYU and some other venues in New York. I was so excited. My sister was with me. It was perfect. And then COVID shut down everything. It was the night that I will never forget this. Broadway closed, the NBA closed, and Tom Hanks had COVID. And I'm like, oh, this shit is real.
Oh my gosh.
And, every event was canceled. I had coffee with a friend, and, we're just wildly speculating what this thing COVID was. I got on the train and I ended in Union Station, Washington, D.C. And I was like, well, it's going to be a pandemic. I should go do some groceries at the Walgreens at Union Station. This is how clear my mind was. I bought 2 rolls of toilet paper and a frozen pizza. And I'm like, okay, this is going to get us through, I come home with this and I'm like, okay, we're ready for lockdown. But, my sister her entire business had been events, wine tastings, wine education, all of this. And she was in New York for the same reason. And she went back home and she's like, I don't know what happens next. What happens? And she had this incredible shift in her business and did incredibly well and pivoted and all of these things. But you just don't know. You never know what you're made of. And I have so much respect, for business owners who are like, okay, I'm going to take this risk every day. I'm going to do my best. And, 10 years, oh my God, that's amazing. And the commitment and the work in it. And, I think I wish that we talked more about that, right? Not how we landed on the other side, but how we got through it.
It's that scrappy part, right?
Yeah. Thank you. By the way, I don't ever look at it like that.
Congratulations.
I always look at it like, I can't believe it's been 10 years.
It doesn't feel that long. It just seems like, and of course I'm not living it, you are, but I think about when you were rolling out sod in the middle of the night because to get Suburbia opened. I mean, those were the early days.
And I was pregnant.
Yeah, you were pregnant.
Because when you're a woman, you can never, ever do less. You got to do more, and you got to do it pregnant, and you got to do it better and bigger.
9%.
And you better be the best at it while pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Since you're so scrappy, I think it's a perfect time for you to give us a scrappy tips and tricks.
I mean, it's not that scrappy. It's a little fancy, but let's go.
All right, let's do it.
Infusing. You all talk about it. You all think you know what you're doing. Everyone's like, oh, I put the fruit in there for like 6 months and then I drank it. And then I was in the bathroom for 2 weeks. It's so weird, right? Because you grew a bunch of bacteria. No, that's not what we're doing here today. So let's talk about infusing. Sometimes infusions are, an hour, 15 minutes, a day. Today, what we're going to do is teach you how to use a high-proof alcohol, which is like gin, and this is 94 proof. And you're going to use a beautiful ingredient like dried chamomile, which I absolutely love. And we're going to mix these two together to make a new ingredient, which is a chamomile-forward gin profile. So what we're going to do is, it's very simple. Whatever you use the chamomile is what you're going to use at the gym. So we are going to take half a cup of chamomile, right? We agree. This is a half a cup. Chamomile, dried, beautiful. One of my favorite things, the best thing that comes out of Austria and that part of the world. And we're going to put it in. And then we are going to add 4 ounces. 4 ounces. That's 4. Half of 8 is 4, everybody, just so we're clear. 4 ounces of gin. And should you use a wet measuring cup? Sure, you can use this. Yes, if you want to play meniscus. If you put a drop more gin in, like, booze bag herself, that would be me. Nothing's going to happen, okay? So what we're going to do with this now is you have this infusion. You're going to set a timer. I know, crazy, right? But you all got some kind of smartphone or watch or a friend or your grandmother's antique timer, and you're going to set this timer for 1 hour. And you're going to check your infusion, and if it has a beautiful golden color, then it's ready. And by the magic of the camera, right, this is what it looks like. We're going to swap in the readied product. So you have this beautiful gold color on the bottom, and you know that the hours pass. And you don't want to go any further than that because tea sometimes can have astringency. And when you have astringency, you're changing the drink from something delicious and floral to something like nail polish. So we don't want to do that, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to get another container and you're going to strain it off. Now this is a fine mesh cheese strainer or cocktail strainer. And you're just going to make sure that you get all that little grit out. And what you're left with is a chamomile infused tea. A chamomile infused gin. Maybe I need to sip a bit. And you can keep this for quite a while. But after infusions, I like to put them inside of the refrigerator because you really don't want it to do anything further. And there might be some bacteria or something that's, lingering on your, it smells really wonderful. Sorry, I had to take a whiff. I don't write the script here. I just smell it. You don't want it lingering on your counter or anything like that. So take it and put a lid on it, throw it in your refrigerator. You can use it later. Again, just remember it's equal parts, right? And you can use any tea to do this, but keep it under the hour mark. Taste it. If you think it needs to go a little longer, let it. Usually it's less. So less is more with your tea infusions.
Gina, that smells so amazing. Chamomile, gin. Woo.
I was inspired by the word golden in the book title, so I made this like golden infusion. So like that that gin with the chamomile. It's just lovely, like doing infusions like that.
Just like Marcia.
Yeah, just like Marcia. Inspired. It's very floral. It's also very floral. I always inspire people to do infusions like that quicker though. Don't make it a science experiment. Just an hour.
There you go, an hour. Anyone can do that. All right, where are they going to go to get that tips and tricks?
So you're going to go to designateddrinker.show to get tips and tricks, or you can follow us on Instagram, and if you want to see it for yourself.
There you go, absolutely. And you can, if you're being a little lazy, you can just scroll down into our episode notes, and we'll make sure there's links to the tips and tricks. You'll find our Instagram link. And the other thing we're definitely going to make sure is that you have a link to Marcia's book, which we're going to get into in part 2.
All right, cool. I'm into that.
So, this brings us to the end of part 1 with designated drinker Dr. Marcia Chatelain, professor of history and African American studies at Georgetown University and the Pulitzer Prize winning author of franchise The Golden Arches in Black America. But if you are anything like me or anything like Gina, one round is never enough. So go back, top off that drink, and get ready for part 2 because you definitely want to find out more about this book and enjoy some more boozy banter. And Gina's going to share her Marcia-inspired cocktail that I know you're not going to want to miss because I'm loving it.
Oh, my God. Oh, my, come on.
And tied together. The Designated Drinker Show is produced by Missing Link. a Latino-owned, strategy-driven, creatively fueled production co-op. From ideation to creation, we craft human connections through intelligent, engaging, and informative content. Also in the Missing Link lineup of podcasts is Roger That, a podcast dedicated to guiding you through the haze of dementia, led by skilled caregivers. Now, if you're looking for a whole new way to enjoy the theater, check out Between Acts, an immersive audio theater podcast experience. Each episode takes you on a spellbinding journey through the works of newfound playwrights, from dramas to comedies and everything in between. Find Missing Link's League of Podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And while you're there, please don't forget to follow, download, and review the shows. Your reviews help our shows reach new audiences. To find out more about Missing Link, visit missinglink.company. That's missinglink.company.